If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, with everything you need all in one place. My fiance originally put me onto this app, and I'm so glad that she did. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And dude, the best part, Anchor is absolutely free. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm today. That's ANCHOR.FM. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Streets Photog Podcast. I'm your host, David Joseph Delgrand. Today, I want to talk about gear. This came up in a social media conversation I was having yesterday on Twitter, and I think it's an important topic. Actually, I know it's an important topic. So it's May 19th, Thursday. I'm a little under the weather, as is the missus, so I am homesick, but I'm sure I'll be recovered by Monday. No worries here. And it's actually a pretty nice day for May. Again, it's, middle of May, nearing in on the end of May, and it's only 90 degrees Fahrenheit at 11 o'clock, which is not too bad. Slight breeze. It's pretty. But back to my conversation on Twitter. So the original thread was asking for people to recommend a starting gear for beginning photographers. And I'm currently using primarily, when it comes to street photography, is a Fujifilm XF10, which is a fixed lens mirrorless point and shoot camera. It's a 28mm equivalent. And I purchased it on eBay for, it was well under $500. I think it was like $425 after shipping. And it's a very, very powerful machine. Very compact. It's actually smaller than my iPhone 11 when it comes to length. Width-wise, it has a little bit more weight to it. But very compact, very discreet. And what I find great about it is that it's not a camera that you can switch your lens, fixed mount. And I think that's essential for beginning photographers for a bunch of reasons. Now, the equipment obsession is also not something that is singularly a photography thing. I hear the same arguments about, skateboarding and DJs, where people get obsessed with the bells and whistles of whatever equipment they're using, which I know blurs the focus of what you're there to do, especially as a photographer. A photographer is supposed to capture the moment. And, via this thread, I was kind of go back and forth with this, acquaintance of mine. And supposedly I was limiting myself by having just a fixed lens piece of equipment. And I disagree with that. I mean, I don't think it's limiting in any way. And especially for a beginning photographer, to not be obsessed with, is this the right lens? Do I have the right equipment? That list of concerns can go on and on and on, especially as someone who doesn't have their confidence, doesn't have the repertoire and practice, really. And if you are a beginning photographer, it makes a lot of sense to not be distracted with details, because your primary job is to tell a story. That is what you're doing. You are in a scene, you are creating a scene, you are witness to or involved in a scene, and you're stopping time, which is a beautiful privilege, and that story is communicated to the viewer. That's it. Period. Full stop. So if you're in the field as a beginning photographer and you're worried about, do I need this body? Oh, maybe I should have this long lens. And as someone who spent a tremendous amount of time as a photojournalist, that's the last thing you want to be doing when you're in the field. If you are at a protest, if you are at a funeral procession, if you are covering a fire, the last thing you want to be thinking about is what lens is right. You need to be grabbing photos. And I think it's a disservice to potentially send a beginning photographer out into the field with way too much equipment when they're more concerned about, is this primary, 35 millimeter going to do the job? It's like, no, the job is to communicate a story, a message, a feeling, a vibe. And yeah, it just doesn't make sense to be inundated with trinkets and toys and the nuance of it. Conversely, I'm not saying it's not important to understand the power of an 80 millimeter lens and how you condense space, or if you're using a wide angle lens and bringing more into the picture plane. Obviously, that's a tremendous skill to have. But for someone who spent a lot of time behind a lens, I keep my gear very, very simple. Most of the time these days, just because it's easiest, I'm shooting with my iPhone, because I found there's a tremendous amount of power in this equipment, and there's a gaggle of really, really talented photographers that are only shooting with their phones. So that's my Thursday thought. If you guys have any feelings about this, whether it's in photography or your own creative industry, drop me a line. Click the link, or it's easy to get in contact with me. Let me know what you think. If you're looking to support this podcast and my other creative adventures, please log on to my website, davidjdelgrand.com, and purchase my first self-published softcover photo book, Lutes del Barrio.